Good evening, friends. It is week 4, and it's hard to believe that after this week, we will already be 25% through this season, Dan. I don't know if I'm happy with how fast this is going. Man, do I want another win after this week, though?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other night, like just going to high school games last night. We're at what? We just finished up.
Yeah, the high school season's over. Like, Massillon's 7-0.
Yep. So it just goes by faster every year. It's part of getting old, I guess.
Yeah, and now that you work for the school system, it's way different for you. At least I have racing video games and all this other stuff to keep me distracted. You have to go have a job. Man,
I hope
rough.
you never win another fantasy football game the rest of your life.
Who knows? Maybe I'll have a job soon. All right, guys. As I mentioned, we are 3 weeks in, and you have to start worrying about your playoff hopes if you're sitting at 0 wins right now, which I believe is only New Rob sitting at 0. We have a lot of 1-win teams that are trying to figure their life out. New Rob, sneak preview. You asked me to stop picking you for wins. I'm not laughing at you, New Rob. I'm laughing at Lee. But you asked me to stop picking you for wins. I will finally stop picking you this week. And our buddy Drifter, Lee, starts off every single week. Get him into the league. Drifter, I think I'm ready to make a promise to you. I was talking over with my wife after the show. She said, if there's a spot, it needs to be yours. So I think at this point, and I think the league is in unanimous agreement, if there is a spot at the end of the season, and there is a better than 50% chance there will be, Drifter, the team will be yours. We'll talk about it soon. So I still need to get you an email so I can get you on the show, but that's a problem for an entirely different day. Dan, let's recap. We always start with trades. I don't remember when the Horvath trade happened. Cole Kmet and for Dak Prescott, basically. Cole Kmet in a third for Dak Prescott. I think that was 1 o'clock on. So we probably talked about that last week, right? No, we went on Friday. So that would have been new. So Cole Kmet in a third for Dak Prescott. And then Taylor swapping Kareem Hunt for Jacoby Myers, a move I like for Taylor's team. I think Jacoby Myers looks better for the Raiders than we thought, though there's a good chance nobody's going to look good for the Raiders this week with Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell playing this week. So
I wish about the trade that didn't happen.
Which one's that?
Devontae Adams, all this talk all week long.
Shop Devontae Adams. Tell everybody you're looking at offers and then accept exactly 0 offers. So.
I mean, yeah, it just got everybody all excited and nothing happened. Remember, when he came in the league, didn't he do the same thing with Jefferson? Acted like he was going to trade him, put him on the block, and then did nothing for a long time?
I couldn't say that for sure. I just know how many times that Jefferson has been traded, so it's all a blur at this point. So, I don't think any of those trades are earth-shattering. Taylor, after moving Waddle, needed wide receiver depth. So if Jacoby Myers plays as well as he did in week 1 for future weeks, it's a good move for Taylor's team.
Taylor's shaping up nice. I mean, just where he is without drafting.
Completely insane.
Yeah.
And while we're on the topic of trades, Drifter made a trade this week. Fields has been killing him. He got, I'm guessing, Derrick Henry? Yes, Derrick Henry and Joe Burrow for Barkley and Brock Purdy. I don't hate the trade whatsoever. I think Derrick Henry needs to get it into gear, but Joe Burrow, this was a buy low window for Joe Burrow, and I think that's a move you have to make, especially going into this week where he's playing the worst defense or the best defense for quarterbacks to be facing in fantasy football. I think that's a great move. As a Bengals fan, Dan, you happy with this?
Short term, no. Long term, yes. So here's the thing. You had Purdy, who's going to be appears to be a consistent guy for me. Whereas Joe Burrow is still obviously having calf issues. I think it's a matter of time for teams kind of switch up the way they've been playing them. The Bengals face a lot of cover 2. They don't want Higgins and Chase to have the deep plays, explosive plays. I don't think Burrow can accurately throw those with his calf consistently. So I think it's a matter of time for NFL teams catch on and start switching up and take away that underneath that the Bengals have been using. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big week for him because everybody beats Tennessee. Deshaun Watson just beat Tennessee. Joe Burrow needs to beat Tennessee.
I think the Bengals, I think they're going to beat them. I'm not worried about that. It's just the point of I don't think that Burrow's going to put up 3.
Oh, that's what I meant. Let me be clear. I think the Bengals are going to win too. I meant Joe Burrow needs to beat up on Tennessee.
It's not going to happen.
Interesting.
I think we're weeks away from Burrow getting back to being Burrow, and that's only if there's no other issues.
Interesting.
Related to the calf.
Yeah, re-aggravation would be a certain issue at this point. So.
Yeah, and I just don't like the Derrick Henry part of that. Honestly, I think he looks to be not himself.
Yeah, getting worrisome, but he does have Tajay Spears, which I think helps that trade just a little bit. He has both members of that backfield, but yeah, that he hasn't looked great either. You really hope Josh Jacobs is another one that missed the preseason and seems to be paying for it. So you hope to see those guys turn around. Takeaways from week 3, Dan, you want to start us off?
Sure. Takeaways from week 3. To me, the thing that stands out to most of me is like how much defense, kickers, and IDPs are just having a huge impact in all of our games.
Yeah.
One guy is going off, and it's really changing who would have won and lost those games if the kicker had a normal kicker game or the IDP had a normal IDP game. The other thing that stuck out to me is we only have 5 teams with winning records right now.
Yeah.
6th place is 1 and 2 Terry. That's crazy to me.
At least it's your preseason champion Terry.
Yeah, it's still looking like he's in the playoff spots there. No, and then so when I was looking up how the season's kind of going for different teams, I looked at who had the easiest schedule so far, which I knew I was up there. I've had the easiest schedule. There's me, JR, and Darren in the top 4 of the easiest schedules. We're all 3-0, and then you have Phil with the 3rd easiest schedule sitting at 1 and 2.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a pretty picture for.
Is that just based on points against?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he is one of, I guess, only 4 teams who has not had 300 points against them in 3 weeks. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem. You're gonna need some points there, buddy. My takeaways are all based on. Well, my first one is very much based on the league. Only one team did not score 100 points last week. So to your point of high scores. Sucks to be Rob. He's the only one who did not cross 100 points last week, which used to be like our threshold for wins. And I understand we've adjusted scoring a little bit, but it still was kind of holding true until last week. It sucks a lot worse to be Rob P and Greg. I do want to point out that we said in our show that those games were going to be insanely close. And my goodness, were we absolutely right. And when you look at the scores for Rob P and Greg, you have Greg who lost 150 to 145 to Darren. That rarely happens. And then 157 to 141. So these guys put up monster scores, weren't able to pull a win. Speaking of Darren's team, DeAndre Swift looks real to me. And I think this brings Darren up to my number 2 team. I'm not ready to give him my championship yet that I have predicted. But Darren, with now DeAndre Swift added to an already very good roster, looking very, very good. And then to complement your team, the heartbreak of the draft, I couldn't have taken him at 3, but maybe I should have. Keenan Allen looks ridiculous. 42 points. Will it ever stop? I don't know.
If you want him, come get him, man.
Yeah. I seriously doubt I have the price that it would cost to get Keenan Allen.
Oh, you do.
Oh, not happening.
All I want is Tank Dell.
Oh, okay. Straight up done. Let's make it happen. But yeah, what a ridiculous season for Keenan Allen so far. I haven't stared at it in our league, but when you look at his points per game in any other league, he is so incredibly better than everybody else. But in our league, I guess it's a little equal. He is even with Tyreek Hill, but they are both 17 points ahead of Justin Jefferson. And then there's just starts to be a steep drop off. So what an insane.
Here's to hoping he keeps it up. He is carrying my team.
Lee just wanted to let us know he made his weekly plea. That's what he's here for. He has a grand final for the main football tonight. So have fun. I hope you guys have an absolute blast and go Brisbane.
Yep.
So, I love it. All right, Dan, last week I went 4-3. You went 3-4. So small disagreements. I'm 11-10 on the season. I don't have your season record, but I kept track of your weekly picks. I once again went through and ranked the games of what I think are order of importance. I have Darren and Rob first. Rob is starting to just plummet. Darren's rising to the top. I don't think this game matters a whole lot. I have Darren winning the game. Hurts, Swift, Tyreek Hill are just going to be too much for Rob to match. There's a little bit of evenness at other positions. I do think Roshan Johnson could have a big game this week if Justin Fields doesn't have a big game. Someone is likely to have a big game versus the Broncos. I just don't know if it's going to be Roschon or Justin Fields.
Yeah, I have Darren winning as well. You kind of exactly what I wrote down. Darren has too much talent for Rob, or the Jacksonville Jaguars for that matter.
Yeah, let's never forget that. Well, Rob will know his entire team score by by 1 o'clock when the game ends because they're in London this week. Reminder to the league: if you haven't set your lineups, there's a London game this week.
Does Rob score 100 points this week?
Ooh, looking at his matchups, I like Devonta Smith a lot. I think Dallas Goedert's holding him down. Romeo Doubs had a pretty good week. Yes, I will go out on a limb and say in a loss, Rob does score 100 points this week. What do you think?
I got Rob. I think he gets 115.
Ooh, so you think he's way over. Next up, Dan, I have Kenny versus Eric, both 1-win teams, which means they are essentially playing for you're not statistically eliminated at 1-3, but things get a lot harder for you. So the winner of this matchup is in much better space than the loser of this matchup. Who do you got, Dan?
Well, first, I have Kenny winning. I think it's interesting they both are starting rookie quarterbacks. I trust Richardson more than C.J. Stroud going against Pittsburgh. C.J. Stroud's looked great. Pittsburgh has a good defense. And I think if this game happened in like week 12, when Houston's starting offensive tackles are back in for them, because right now they have both the guys are out. It could be a closer game, but I feel like the Pittsburgh defensive ends are going to just eat. So
in our league scoring, the Rams actually give up far fewer points to the quarterback than the Pittsburgh Steelers do. However, you did hit a nail on the head with, I think it's 4 offensive linemen out. CJ Stroud could end up dead in this game, but then again, so could Anthony Richardson going up against Aaron Donald. That was something I had reiterated on some shows earlier this week, that anybody with concussion protocol going up against Aaron Donald, you have to worry if they're even going to finish the game. Could be a tough one, but yeah, you're right. 2 rookie quarterbacks, very, very interesting matchup. I also have Kenny.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I do want to say, going back to your whole fall on the 1-3, considering the fact that we have a playoff team right now at 1-2, I think just being one game out at 1-3 of a probable 2-2 sixth place, you're really not out of it yet.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But you're getting to that point where you're in trouble.
But yeah, I like Kenny's wide receivers better. Thielen, I think, could have another good week. Thielen sneakily the wide receiver 11 on the season, which is just bananas. I think we see a Jalen Waddle bounce back once he's back in the lineup. Kyle Pitts doesn't have to do much to match Sam Laporta, which is good because Kyle Pitts doesn't do much, though I think it's 1/3 of his career touchdowns were scored in London. But yeah, like I said, the small edges to Kenny. Danielle Hunter is an interesting one. And you kind of brought up that IDPs have been changing the landscape of how things have been going. And Eric is starting Danielle Hunter and the Minnesota defense, and Carolina's offensive line is not good. And so if Danielle Hunter goes off in this game and it ends up being a 20 to 30 point week for Minnesota and a 20 to 30 point week for Danielle Hunter, completely doable. We could see this game flip, but I am going to give the win to Kenny for right now. I have me versus Greg as the next one. 2 wins with me, 1 win with Greg. Pretty even matchup. I'll go ahead and let you go in on first since it's my matchup.
Same thing I say every week about your team. You have too much talent. I expect you to win the game. The 49ers going against the Cardinals and him starting Purdy and Samuel, if that's a high-scoring game, because the Cardinals have played well for a team that, before the season we thought was trying to lose every game. If it forces the 49ers to play, offense the whole game, they could have a big game. And that could keep it closer or even take that victory away from you, but I do have you winning.
My only concern for that is I just saw a report today that the 49ers expect Debo to be ready, and I never like to hear those words. It's why I kept David Montgomery on my bench. Large regret right now. We're pretty even everywhere, but basically what you alluded to and what I say about my team every single week, Mahomes, CMC, Kelsey just give me an edge against most teams in this league, and Greg runs right into that again. However, literally in my notes, Purdy could go off this week, and if it stacks with Debo, that could be a problem for me. So I agree. It comes down to that game to keep it close. I don't think it's going to be a runaway by any stretch, but that's exactly what I was looking at. Next up, I have Horvath versus JR. Horvath sitting at 1 win. We both think he's better than a 1-win team. JR sitting at 3 wins right now. I have Horvath winning this one. And again, when I look over position by position, this is just slight wins at each position for Horvath. It comes down to, can Burrow play like Burrow? And you've now said he can't. And that's how I said JR was going to keep the game interesting. So if Burrow's not going to play like Burrow, JR is going to lose this game to Steve Horvath.
I have it in my notes. I have Steve winning. I expect the Bengals to have a low-scoring game against the Titans. The last few times they've played, they've been low-scoring games. I wouldn't be shocked if it was a similar situation, especially. I think the Bengals are trying to keep it just low-scoring, get it out at the end, get the win type of games. So I don't expect much out of fantasy production from his players there.
I'm going to have to look at some of my DFS lineups. I think I have a few bets on the Bengals doing well in this game, fantasy-wise, that I might have to reconsider. Let me ask you a fantasy question, Dan. In a 2 QB league where I'm lucky enough to have Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, I think it's Kenny Pickett on my bench. Would you start Pickett over Burrow? Would you go that far?
So I avoid Pickett at all costs. So
I do too.
let me look at how Pickett's played this year.
Let me see if this is even
the thing that makes me nervous about Pickett is he's going against Houston, at Houston, and Houston's defense made Trevor Lawrence look bad last week. So
in this league, he's the QB 24, scoring 11, 12, and 22. And as a comparison, Burrow has scored 3, 19, and 8.
I would go Burrow over him because I think Burrow still has a chance to go 225 and maybe 2 touchdowns, which it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, that'll get it done. If it's 225 and 2 touchdowns, I'll be happy with that. I was hoping for more. I was hoping for 3 bills and 3 touchdowns being that Tennessee defense, but you're saying that that's a vast over expectation.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see that. But I with Pickett, I just don't know that you're going to get more than 200 and maybe one touchdown, 1 pick kind of thing from him. So
that's fair. And yeah, I like that Houston defense as well. Next up, and I think these 3 matchups all are very, very consequential for the league. Taylor versus Phil. 1 win each. Obviously, teams that are equal in the standings, but very unequal in our minds. Dan, I'm going to let you get us started on this one.
I think Taylor's going to win this one. Phil's starting too many Browns. Watson hasn't practiced all week long. They're not even 100% sure he's even going to play. What's that do for his other Browns players he has? They're going against a good Baltimore defense. The one X factor I'll say is that Taylor has Mike Evans in his starting lineup. Well, Evans is playing the Saints. Every time Evans plays the Saints, he gets ejected because he's going to try and fight Deshaun Lattimore.
Every other time. The question is this the blow-up game or is this
it's always
kicked
the first,
out game?
It's
always the first game. Yep.
Yeah. So I expect him to get kicked out. At what point does it happen? Does it happen in the first quarter before he does anything? Does it happen in the fourth quarter, maybe after he's put up some points? So if that happens and Watson plays, maybe Phil can keep it close and pull something out. But I expect Taylor to win.
I just realized as I'm looking at these two playing each other that I read that trade completely backwards. Taylor gave up Jacoby Myers. I just read that completely wrong. So terrible trade for Taylor, who just keeps getting rid of wide receiver talent, putting a lot of his faith in Michael Thomas right now, but I guess he's stacking running backs, which is a lesson we've learned. So
it's so funny that I thought that in my head. I was like, I could have swore that.
I saw you make a face. Yeah. I literally saw you make a face and didn't put 2 and 2 together until I was just looking at this. So I look like an asshat the whole beginning of the show, but yeah, I hate the trade completely. Taylor should have held on to Jacoby Myers. So good on Phil, bad on Phil this week for the exact reasons that Dan said. I have Taylor winning this matchup. They're closer than I wanted to be. And when matches are close, I go with my preferred quarterback. Taylor doesn't even know who he wants to start, Tua or Justin Fields, but I like either one of them better than a quarterback who, 28 years old, had to take an entire week off because he couldn't throw the ball. And they started talking about how they were resting his shoulder, which obviously led to massage jokes. And every bit of this was just terrible for the Browns and for Phil's entire team, because it's not like Jerome Ford's going to go out there and ball because Deshaun Watson can't throw the football. It's going to give the defense time to pick them apart, and that's going to be a problem. even if Tua has a tougher matchup against the Bills, we can't expect what he's going to do last week to happen again. The question marks around the Browns just suffer too much for Phil's team. So I agree wholeheartedly there, but I love the Mike Evans take.
I worked a lot this week, and so I did not catch the massage jokes on that. That is hilarious.
Yeah, well, like I said, it was just things here and there. But when I saw, I think it was Wednesday, that he had to sit out Tuesday's practice and they were resting him. I'm like, resting? He's 28. Let me make sure I'm getting his age right here. Yes, 28 years old. And he's taking days off in the middle of the week. I was like, no, the guy has to be hurt. And then it eventually came out that he was hurt. So probably playoff wise, one of the more consequential matchups, because I had Rob P in the playoffs over Terry. You had Terry winning the championship. They are playing each other, Dan. Terry sitting at 1 win. Rob is our only winless team. And Rob asked last week. I'm answering this week. I'm picking Terry to win. Another very crazy matchup. And as I always state, when there is a crazy matchup, I like to pick the quarterback that I like in that matchup. And so with Lamar Jackson going up against Cleveland and Justin Herbert going up against the Raiders, it's easy to like Justin Herbert better. But I don't know, Dan, if you've noticed what the Browns defense have done in fantasy football this season, and just standard regular scoring. They have given up the second fewest points to quarterbacks and the fewest to running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, all three positions. I do this little matchup report for one website I write with. Never have I seen one team in the whole bottom 5, let alone the bottom 2 at every position. Just absolutely nuts what the Browns defense has done. So with that situation again, no Austin Eckler this week. I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem. And Josh Kelly should be enough to match what Jahmyr Gibbs didn't do again on Thursday night.
Yeah, I feel bad for Rob on the whole Gibbs thing. I would have taken him too, but he's just not looking like he's going to get enough work out of Detroit to be successful this year with the way they're using Montgomery. So I get that the Browns defense are putting up crazy stats. Let's look at their 3 opponents so far. Joe Burrow coming off the calf, who has not looked like himself in the rain week 1. Pickett, who we don't like week 2. And then Tennessee's offense, which looks like it's terrible week 3.
Yeah,
I'm excited for this game to see how they handle a real NFL offense, to see if they are truly a great defense, or are they just great because of the schedule so far that they've had.
That's a good point.
So we'll see. I actually have Rob winning. Yeah. Terry's had too many injuries, man. He can't not have Eckler out there, and he's not going to have him next week either because they're on bye. And he has Eckler, Herbert, his whole team's on bye. I get to play him. I'm super excited about that. But good news for Terry. After that, you have pretty much all your buys already done.
Now, go ahead.
But no, I think Rob's going. I think it's gonna be a close game. I really do. I don't like starting Zach Charbonnet. He's not. And I know every week he's been getting more touches, more goal line opportunities. But if he doesn't score a touchdown, what kind of production is he going to have? That makes me nervous.
I mean, he really doesn't have a choice when you look at his team, though. Antonio Gibson's done nothing. Deuce Vaughn is a backup. Damian Harris is splitting backup duties with Latavius Murray at running back. He's just in bad shape.
Correct. I agree. I was going to say something else. Lost it. But overall, I think his team looks like it's in better shape than Terry's. I am picking him to win.
I was going to say, it's interesting we're going in on his team right now, but you're picking him to win.
I do. I don't like Terry's. Derrick Henry going against the Bengals defense. Bengals defense has looked good.
Yeah. And Derrick Henry hasn't.
Amari Cooper with who knows what at quarterback is if Watson, even if Watson plays, is how effective he's going to be if you can't even get a single throw in at practice all week. David Njoku literally burned his face off this morning.
Yes. Did you see the report that came out later where Njoku swears he's playing, but the Browns need to find out if he can put a helmet on, is how bad these burns are. So,
and it's on his hands too. How is he going to catch the ball?
It's fair.
And again, if you asked me before, like knowing what team David Njoku's on, just say, hey, a certain player's team is going to have a guy burn his hands off the day before a game. I would have been, that's Terry's team for sure.
Oh my God. I thought you were going to shit on the Browns. You're talking about Terry's team.
Yeah, Terry's team.
And I have this in my notes for the playoff discussion, but is Terry this year's Horvath? It's starting to feel that way.
So at last week we were sitting there, and actually Phil was actually beating Horvath. I was like, well, Horvath is this year's Horvath again.
Yeah.
But Horvath came back, got the win. So maybe Terry is this year's Horvath. It just isn't going to work out for him.
Yeah. What was I going to say now? I completely lost it. Oh, I wanted to go back to Jahmyr Gibbs. Outside of our league, I had a big discussion. I hosted a show this morning for a start sit show that I do. And there was a big debate on, are you happy in a regular PPR league with Jahmyr Gibbs as your flex option? Not as your RB2, but he's a guy you need to put out there as the flex option. And I see you shaking your head no already. So I'm going to let you go first, then I'll give my side of it.
So I'm just looking at the scoring from our league. So far this year, he has 5, 10, 6, and 7. I want more of my flex than that. I don't feel like that's enough.
And that's probably pretty accurate. I know he scored 9 this week, I think, in regular fantasy football. We penalize yardage for anybody who's watching the show and doesn't know our league scoring. He scored 9. So just to tell you what he scored in regular PPR, he has scored 8, 12, 9, and 9.
Yeah, I'm not happy with that. I would want more.
So I agree. I'm not happy with the first 4 weeks of Jahmyr Gibbs. But if a player's baseline is 9 points, and that seems to be what his is, and then falling into the end zone gets him 15, I am happy with that at my flex position. And that's kind of the stance I took on it. David Montgomery isn't going anywhere. David Montgomery took the Jamal Williams role. He's going to score 15 touchdowns this year. But that leaves, 4 or 5 touchdowns for Jahmyr Gibbs. The question is, and I haven't watched enough Detroit, what is he doing so wrong that I think he's only played more than 50% of snaps in the game that David Montgomery missed. Like, they don't want him on the field. And that is puzzling to me. So it's likely pass blocking because that's what it usually is.
I don't think this is a Gibbs fault thing. This is what they did last year with Swift. He didn't play a lot. Everybody was expecting behind that offensive line, and they did the exact same thing. This is just who Detroit is, what they want to do. I don't understand trading away Swift for nothing, taking the 6th overall pick in the draft and taking this guy to be used like this.
So I'm glad you brought that up. In 14 games last year, so missing 3 games of the season, Swift was still the RB21 in PPR fantasy football. If he is DeAndre Swift, I'm happy with that. Like, you want to see more passing game work out of him. And I agree. I don't think this is necessarily a Jahmyr Gibbs thing, except maybe the lack of passing game work. But David Montgomery is a better passing back than Jamal Williams was. So maybe they just feel more comfortable splitting it this year. I mean, clearly they are very, very comfortable with David Montgomery. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. So, and that brings us to your matchup, Dan. I had to put this one as the top matchup because it's a 3 versus 2. It's the only matchup where 2 positive record teams are facing each other this week. And if you beat Stevie, that's another team falling to 500 or below, which is super weird for the season. I am picking you to beat Stevie. While I like Kirk Cousins, overall the mashups for you just shake out far, far better. Keenan Allen, Puka Nacua, you have literally my 2 favorite wide receivers in the NFL right now. Just putting it on everybody in PPR. That puts Stevie in such a hole. It's going to make up for the Aaron Jones dud that you had. Very interesting, and I brought this up again last week, but now you've already answered my question from my notes. I said it's very interesting leaving T. Higgins on the bench against this Tennessee matchup, but I got it already, but you stand that you think it was going to be the right move regardless.
So here's the thing. I like T. Higgins. He could still have a very good, a very good game. 2 weeks ago now, he had 30-point game. But when you look at the low scoring possibilities of a Tennessee game, you have Chris Olave going against Tampa Bay's defense. I have Keenan Allen going against Las Vegas, and I have Puka Nacua. Who do you bench in that situation?
Yeah,
I'm going to bench the guy that has a questionable quarterback due to health than the guys that have healthy situations going for them against bad defenses.
That's fair. The real question is, how much more of a leash are you going to give Darren Waller, who has not scored more than 10 points yet, however, is still the tight end 8 on the season? Is that going to be a move you're looking to make?
Obviously, I want more out of him. But you're not trading Kelsey.
Certainly not.
Stevie's not trading Andrews, and I already have the tight end 8. Well, how much better is it going to get? I
That's
mean,
fair.
the only option is if Bill, continues to fall off. Maybe he can trade Hawkinson and get something. But I don't trust Hawkinson. Hawkinson will have 2 or 3 good games in a year, and the rest of the year he's Darren Waller too. Now, Darren Waller has not performed. Again, Giants have gone against San Francisco's defense and Dallas's defense. 2 of what I consider the top 4 defenses in football. Now, if they go out these next couple weeks against other teams, like they play Seattle, they're still good, but they're not to that same level.
Yeah.
And then Minnesota, and lay some eggs then we're going to have some different conversations we need to have. But I expect him to bounce back. I think he's going to get more productive. He is also coming off a hamstring injury that first week of the season. Hopefully he just continues to get better. But yeah, I am obviously nervous about where he's at, but I also understand the situation of who they were playing in those 2 of those first 3 weeks.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Are you picking yourself? Do you have more analysis you want to throw in than just?
Yeah, I'll throw some analysis in. It's Kirk Cousins at 1:00. Kirk Cousins has been outstanding this year. I'm picking Steve to win. I think he could have a monster game. Zach Moss. What?
I said whoa. I said obviously you're picking yourself to win, but you've now thrown me off. So.
No, Kirk Cousins at 1:00 could have a monster game. Zach Moss, he's looked really good. I do believe that the Browns' defensive stats have been because they haven't gone against anybody, so I expect Andrews to have a big game. The one thing that we'll see what happens if he keeps Barkley in there and waits till Monday.
Doubtful players don't play. I don't think he can make that move. So
we'll see, but see what he puts in there in his flex. He has some good options. Hollywood Brown.
I'd say or he'll have to go get. I don't even know. Like I imagine. Breida's on a roster already. So, yeah, there's no way he's just sitting out there. So, your roster. Yeah. I was going to say, so he'll have to cut Nick Bolton to go find somebody playing on Monday night if he doesn't want to just throw Hollywood Brown in there. So
I went out and got Breida because I knew Barkley was going to be out for a few weeks and I was going to play him during this time. I wasn't going to give him that option of having him out there.
Oh, look at you. That's some next level shit right there. I go trade for 2 handcuffs thinking David Montgomery is going to be out forever and he comes back and scores 3 touchdowns. So I'm just out here, but I got Tank Dell, so I'm not terribly upset by the entire trade.
Love Tank Dell.
I'm growing to love him. I
told you this in the offseason in our big league. That's why I took him. I told you before the draft even started.
And I took Puka Nacua in that same draft, and now I feel like we should just trade straight up. I don't think anyone's going to be all that upset about it. Certainly not me. All right, Dan, those are the matchups for the week. I don't think I'm wrong here. Our only disagreements were the last 2 matchups, so I clearly ordered these correctly. I have Terry. You have New Rob. I have you. You have Stevie. So those will be the matchups that decide who's happy and who's sad this week. Dan, let's talk about your playoff teams. I'll go first. I still have myself winning the championship. I still have you, JR, Darren, and I still have Horvath and Terry. I will say I had last week, what is this? 1, 2, 5, can't math. 7 teams fighting for the last 2 spots. I have downgraded Mott's and Rob P. I just think their things are coming up wrong. We talked about the running backs for Rob P. I don't really like what's happening there. Motts and Taylor are in similar situations where they need a win this week before they hopefully get their better player back next week. But overall, I still just don't like Motts' roster as much as Taylor's. So I do have Taylor, Stevie, and Greg on the outside looking in, but my playoff teams are me, Darren, you, JR, Horvath, and Terry in that order. But Terry very much looking like this year's Horvath on a playoff bubble, no doubt about it.
All right, we have one disagreement. I have actually dropped Terry out of my playoffs.
Oh, my God. Your champion doesn't make the playoffs anymore.
No, my champion does not. Terry let me down. I have Darren winning it. I actually have my notes. Is Darren beatable? Like, I think he's going to have a monster year. Like, I'm telling you, if Swift, Hurts, Tyreek Hill, that's some nice stuff. Walker's looking great. I think he's in a great spot. So I have Darren as my champion.
Who do you have jumping in out with Terry out now?
I got Stevie.
Okay.
Stevie jumping in, Terry's out. I'm shocked you don't have Stevie in the playoffs.
So
I feel disrespected.
I have in my notes that his team exploded after a quiet week 1, but Andrews is not looking like the edge that he hoped he would be. My notes for Taylor's team is how important this week is. It's basically my same notes for Rob's team. Horvath getting that big first W. But as I look at his team, I'm starting to get more and more concerned. I would love to see Josh Allen have a Josh Allen game, and I'm sure Horvath would as well. Should be a big week against Miami, and this is going to be a big week for Horvath in general. So again, we only disagree on one team, but this time it's me moving Terry into the playoffs and you moving Terry out of the playoffs. So, and me disrespecting Stevie, that's okay. He's at his sister's wedding today. He's not going to see this until after the game's already over. So
he ain't watching this either way. So.
that's absolutely fair. That is not happening.
Dan, Steve, I need to know, how many episodes of this have you ever watched?
Ooh. And will this be a one where he's able to answer? So
under over. I go under 3.
Oh, yeah, I'll say he probably watched one and realized it wasn't for him. Everybody wants the episodes to be shorter, but we talk. So looking at how we end the show, the game, very close last week. Taylor scored 39 points. Darren scored 40 points, but I was your champion with 41 points. I will make my picks first in case anybody needs time to make their picks or a reminder of what the game is. You're going to pick who's going to be the top quarterback in our scoring and who's going to be the top other position in our scoring, wide receiver, running back, or tight end. Send them in the chat. Send me a text. Put them in the league chat. Play the damn game. I am going with Jalen Hurts and Jamar Chase. So I feel really silly about the Jamar Chase pick right now. I should change it, but I want you to be wrong. So I'm going to go with Jamar Chase. So.
I am probably wrong.
That's my first win on the season. You won the first 2 weeks. So
yeah, I was waiting for my score there. I was like, I didn't win. Weird.
No, you actually only scored 23. You finished last. Drifter had 31 points. You were dead last week.
Ouch. So. That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
I'm going to take David Montgomery as my flex play.
I said it's allowed if you think no one's going to beat him.
I'm just messing with you. CMC for my flex. And Tua as my quarterback.
Ooh, you think a back-to-back big weeks against that Buffalo defense, huh?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game.
I say let's talk a little about that before we get out of here. So
42-37 Buffalo.
Good Lord. That would make it the highest two-team score of the season. I don't think anything's going to be 70-20. So, but with two teams scoring that many points, I think the Buffalo defense is waiting. I'm happy for Buffalo that this game is in Buffalo. I just don't know if they'll go off the way they did without being able. I don't think they'll be able to run the ball at will like they did against Denver. Denver already had a bad run defense. Now they have an atrocious run defense statistically. I think Buffalo is going to slow down that run just a little bit more than what Denver did and make Tua throw the ball more. The question is, can they stop Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle?
I thought about throwing Tyreek Hill in my flex there.
And it's fair. The stacks, I mean, I don't think anyone's actually won with a stack yet, though. So who knows one way or the other. No, very interesting, Dan. You're the first person. I've seen people say, like, you got to start Raheem Mostert this week after what he did last week, or, Devon Achane. You have to start these guys. I don't know. Buffalo's a very different team than Denver. So you have to start Tyreek Hill. No fucking question about that. And Taylor's pondering, does he start Tua or does he start Justin Fields? I think Justin Fields scores 2 rushing touchdowns this week just as like a get back game, but I would still also start Tua. So I like that call out of you.
Yeah. I when you first said he was debating on starting Fields over Tua, I wanted to just say something, but I was like, nope, be respectful. I think that, there is no way I would ever consider right now starting Fields over Tua. Fields have to show it to me before he gets into my starting lineup.
Yeah. Someday Taylor's going to have to come on the show and explain what the fuck he was doing with that trade in the first place. So,
and I just want to say, I almost traded for Fields before the season started. I am so happy I did not do that.
Keep in mind, this man is not even having a good season at quarterback. Talking about Dan and his team, and he's still happy he didn't trade for Justin Fields.
So here's the thing. I love Jordan Love is looking great to me. I know he never his best week this week, but I typically try to avoid starting guys on Thursday night games.
I wondered where you had the balls to pull him out of your lineup on that one.
I don't like guys going on Thursday nights. Thursday nights are wild cards. They can have big nights or they can have absolute duds, and I'd rather just take my chances with Daniel Jones going against an average defense on Monday night than the wild card of Jordan Love going against Detroit on Thursday.
If he had hit that touchdown at the end of the game instead of that interception, you'd be super pissed right now, but it went the way it went, so it could work out well for
I
you.
wouldn't be, because here's the thing. I
You
made
still
that
have him?
decision, and I would have still been comfortable with it. Like, here's the thing. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen on those Thursday night games. It's just,
Yeah.
he's a rookie. He's not a rookie, but it's his first year as a starter. I'm more than happy to go with Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones will have a big week this week. So
Yeah, I tend to avoid the Thursdays as well, but I was in on Love this
well,
week.
we
I
noticed
called,
that's why you didn't start Montgomery.
no,
Right?
I don't start questionable players, and now I feel like an asshole. I'm telling you, I have this guy in like 8 leagues. I played him in 0 leagues, and it's not my favorite thing about the world right now. It ruined my entire Friday. I was upset all day on Friday.
I was sitting at work on Friday, like, I should probably text Ryan and make sure he's okay.
I'm telling you, if you had texted me between 9 and noon, I wouldn't even have responded. I was legitimately a prick from 9 to noon about this.
Did you stay up and watch or no?
Through the third quarter, I saw the pick at the end of the game. Yes, I stayed up and watched. So,
Oh yeah, I should have texted you during the game then, just to.
yeah, it was disheartening to say the very least. Dan, parting words for our friend.
I love you guys. Enjoy the weekend. Who day?
There you go. Greg, I barely know you, but go fuck yourself. I hope this is a terrible, terrible week for you. I'm going to take you down. I'm going to end your playoff run this early. I don't care what Dan says about 1-win teams still having a chance. You don't, after the demoralization that Mr. Taylor Swift puts on you this week. Part-time ninjas, baby. Let's get it. Everybody have a good weekend, except Greg.